I'm Catherine Allen, and I'm a virtual reality producer and curator. I tend to focus all my work around getting virtual reality to much broader audiences, to the sort of audience who wouldn't describe themselves as an early adopter. I've produced two of the BBC's first VR experiences, Easter Rising Voice of Rebel and No Small Talk, and then more recently I've been focused pretty much solely on getting VR to wider audiences. My company is called Limina, and we're completely focused around taking VR to people, to the sorts of people who would probably really enjoy it, but maybe wouldn't see it as their thing if you asked them.
Okay, so why do you think it's important for women to use new technologies like virtual reality to tell stories?
Whenever there's an emerging technology, what tends to happen is men adopt it first. So if you're familiar with the distribution curve of technology adoption, you'll know that early adopters and innovators sit right at the beginning. You've got innovators, early adopters, and then as more people take it up, it goes into the early majority and then the late majority. The more it is towards this side of the curve, innovators and early adopters, the more male dominated that space is. This isn't just in virtual reality, this is across all emerging technologies. There's loads of reasons why that is. Specifically for virtual reality, it's because of perception, so virtual reality headsets being a gimmick, a sort of a gadget, something that's fun and maybe for a dad to do in his son, a Christmas present perhaps. The other thing is the gaming heritage. VR is quite an obvious fit for gaming, and it seems like a really clear use case. But the thing is gaming audiences are so overwhelmingly male, so we're bringing that baggage with us from another industry. So right now we're at a stage with the industry where it's actually, it's a whole new medium and it's a whole new industry. It's early days, and it's, even though there's still a gender gap right now with VR, people who've tried it, there's still an opportunity, a huge opportunity, it being pretty much a blank slate, to carve out a kind of healthy, positive, inclusive industry and audience groups possible. The stats on VR use in the UK are, well, I find them a bit depressing. 13% of women in the UK have tried virtual reality versus 20% of men. That's according to a study that was done by Comres and Wigan, the law firm. It's sad because, in my view, virtual reality is so cool and has so much potential for it just to be in the hands of men is a real shame. It's something that we should have equal access to. So it's important for women to be exploring their stories in virtual reality, and it's also important for women to be consuming virtual reality, because if this is going to be an industry as big as is predicted by analysts and research firms, this is going to be on a par in terms of as a medium with television, with cinema, with gaming. We should aim for it to be inclusive and to learn from the mistakes of other industries of the past. So making virtual reality that appeals to women and is from a female perspective and skews the male gaze in favour of a female gaze, or at least a gender neutral gaze, is something that's really important at this stage in the industry. And that's why I'd advocate that women look to virtual reality to explore their stories. And there's a reason why I say explore stories rather than tell stories. And okay, maybe I'm picking up on a sort of finer grammatical point, but having done a lot of VR and made VR, it's clear that what is special about VR is its simulative quality, the fact that it gives you a sense of presence. A problem there with storytelling is that while it's possible to do storytelling in VR, and there are some great examples, it's much harder than it is to create a more simulative experience, which is around presence, being somewhere, experiencing it for yourself. So a great story in VR tends to be more story doing rather than storytelling, and the audience comes away with a sense of ownership over that experience. So they feel that it's something that happened to them and becomes part of their identities. So storytelling feels like it's baggage, to be honest, as a phrase. It's baggage from another industry, from Hollywood, from publishing. If we see VR as fresh and new, then in my view, story being, story living, story doing, they're more appropriate terms.
What limitations do you think women have to work with virtual reality?
The biggest limitation that women face in terms of making virtual reality is stereotypes and assumptions. There are no barriers, of course, in terms of how able we are to make VR or to understand VR. The barrier is around, does it come out to you? Do people assume you're going to do it? Are you invited to things that are relevant to it? So I'll give you an example. We ran a workshop, a one-day boot camp for people from underrepresented groups or backgrounds who wanted to make virtual reality, and it was like a one-day welcome to VR and learn about it. And a large proportion of the people who came, because it's from people from underrepresented groups, were women to this event. It's called the Diversity Initiative Boot Camp. And these women told us that until we reached out to them to invite them to this, they hadn't seen it as their domain. Because no one had assumed that they would be interested, and realising that it was something that they could do and it was relevant, it was like this whole wave of understanding. And it was quite beautiful to see a group of women realise that something is within their reach and is just as much for them as men. Even this morning, in fact, I was talking to a female Uber driver, and we were talking about virtual reality, and she said, oh, it's just, it's a blokey thing, I just don't see it as kind of my area. I mean, I don't really like gaming, it's not really. And I told her about a piece that we've put on in Cambridge Film Festival called Wonderful You, which is where you're in the womb with it's like meeting your unborn self with a fetus, and you're observing and understanding fetal development. Part documentary, I suppose part immersive experience. Telling her about this piece, she said, well, I want to do that. This sounds like my kind of thing. I'd love to learn about, what's gone on before inside my tummy, or what I've been like. But no, she's like, I never thought that kind of experience would ever exist. Never thought VR would be for me. When are you going to put it on? How can I see it? And it only takes a quick 10-minute conversation like that, and you get a change in understanding. So the barriers are, on the plus side, they're all pretty illusionary.
Great, okay. And so what do you think that it is about virtual reality that female filmmakers can take advantage of? Why do you think they should consider this as a medium to go into?
Virtual reality is just as relevant for filmmakers as it is to people from, say, a theatre background or a gaming background, or even, a guided tour background. It's a whole new medium, it's a whole new industry. So if you're a woman who's considering getting into virtual reality, then it's something that, at first it's good to have a play and dabble, but I would advise you see this as totally fresh and totally new. It's not really something for filmmakers to get involved in as filmmakers, it's more to come in and be a virtual reality maker. A lot of virtual reality is about perspective and point of view, so sometimes you're in somebody else's body, called embodiment, or you're observing something as a voyeur. Especially for those point of view pieces, it's really important that we get an equal representation of female perspectives as well as male. And I can tell you, in virtual reality, it's really obvious when something's been made by men for men. Even if they're not explicit about it and they don't even realise they were doing it, it becomes strikingly obvious. And so we need more women in VR to balance it out. So join us.
Great, okay.
If you are getting into virtual reality and you experiment, you make something, you get involved in a project, my colleague Emma and I would love to see your work. So please do send it to us, and you'll see the email address is at the bottom of this screen.